World of Warcraft private servers. Over the years, we've seen them rise and fall. Then rise and fall again. Then rise and, well, you get the idea. But in a sea of servers that have come and gone, there is one server out there that stood the test of time, and that is Vanillagaming. You see, the server has been up and running since 2009. 2009. When retail was still in the Wrath of the Lich King expansion, Obama became president, Michael Jackson passed away, Windows 7 was released, and the year the Black Eyed Peas were still relevant. Yeah, you feel old yet? Because I sure do. Anyway, since the server has been up since 2009, I was kinda curious on how it stacks up against the more recent private servers. I mean, they did have over 8 years to kink out all the bugs, so it should be good, right? Well, there's only one way to find out. So welcome to my server review of Vanillagaming. To start things off, I'll give you a quick rundown of what Vanillagaming is. Vanillagaming is a vanilla World of Warcraft private server with a 15 times leveling rate, though you can change this with an in-game command, 2 times rate for professions and skill, it has all the vanilla content released, and it does have a cash shop. More on that later. So the first time you log in, you realize that the server isn't exactly booming with people. There's barely anyone to be found in the starting area, and a simple /who in the zone itself will show you only a handful of people. Not exactly the best thing ever, considering many quests in vanilla will go much smoother if you can quest with someone else. Not that you'll be questing that much, considering the standard XP rate is 15 times, so you'll be flying through the zones at a ridiculous pace. If you know where to go and you know what you're doing, you could easily get to level 60 in a day. I'm not joking. Anyway, during my time leveling, I asked very early on in World Chat if the people here were hosting any pug raids, and it seems like they do. Also, my first interaction with people from the server was not bad at all, so that's always nice to see. Anyway, back to the questing, because oh boy, was it ever something to behold. I had line of sight issues, mobs being behind me on my screen, yet I was able to attack them, mobs being very far away from me, even though I was also too close to fire at them, certain quests not working, like this digging quest, being able to sheep an alliance scout and that mob still remaining on its mount, which is a first for me, the Call of Fire mob attacking me even though I haven't summoned him yet, lockboxes saying they're open but in fact they're still locked, posting on the auction house is free of charge for some reason, items saying they're BOP when they're clearly not, visual bugs on these houses in Thunderbluff, mobs falling through bridges, escort quests not working. I think you get the idea. It's a goddamn mess, and having this many bugs in your leveling content is not exactly what you call motivating for people to push on to max level and start doing dungeons and raids. Maybe that's why they have the 15 times leveling rate, so you can speed yourself through the leveling content and forget you ever had to go through all of that. To be fair though, it wasn't 100% terrible. During my time playing, I had no lag whatsoever, the few people I did meet were kinda nice, there were no sudden server disconnects, and most of the quests I did worked pretty decently. It doesn't outweigh the amount of bugs I encountered though, so we're not exactly off to a good start, but who knows, maybe their endgame content is way better. So after getting to level 60, it was time to look around for people wanting to do dungeons, and here's the problem. There's barely anyone wanting to run those, and that's because the majority of people here on the server have no need to run dungeons other than some raid mats, the odd item or two, or having an alt they want to gear up. So when it comes to dungeons, you either A, have to be lucky to find a group that just happens to be forming when you're on, or B, spend a long time in World Chat trying to find 4 other people. Luckily, my first dungeon on the server was Skullman's, with some people that have been on the server for a fair share of time. Hence the insane gear they were wearing, which did make Skolo a little bit of a face roll for the most part. So how was the dungeon itself? Well, in all honesty, it wasn't too bad. I mean, yes, the first boss we encountered just randomly appeared, and it seems like some bosses were missing a few abilities, but when I look at the dungeon as a whole, it was passable. Definitely not the best, but doable and enjoyable enough. Next up was BRD, because if I wanted to actually do a raid on the server, I needed to get my attunements out of the way. And like Scholarman's, BRD was okay-ish. I mean, the arena fight was a bit of hit and miss, with High Justice Grimstone walking and popping the correct dialogue, but then the ads didn't come out of the tunnels, and for some reason all these mobs were stacked together at this place. The bridge still had the same familiar visual bug I remember, which gave me a bit of Phoenix nostalgia, and I always chuckle a little at how horrible this looks. On the flip side, the Grim Guzzler event looked like it was working just fine, but at the tomb we only had to kill one of these dwarves instead of killing them one by one, and there was no chest that appeared, so that's definitely off. Later in the Lyceum the door was already open, which normally has to be opened by lighting the torches. After that we killed the Emperor and I got my Molten Core attunement done. So all in all, it's average at best. Definitely not the worst I've seen, but there is a lot of room for improvement. Anyway, moving on to the last dungeon I did, Upper Blackrock Spire. And I know this is considered a raid, but you know what I mean. I was surprised to see that this one worked better than the other dungeons I did. Sure, the animation on the first boss was off, the mobs don't spawn correctly during the fight with Ren Blackhand, and the beast was patrolling around for some reason, but all in all this dungeon worked alright, and it was a step up compared to the 5-man dungeons I did before this. I heard some people on the server say that they put most of their work in getting the raids to work properly, so seeing this increase of quality does give me hope once I attend the raids here. The first raid I joined here was AQ20, and notice how I'm wearing terrible gear? Well, it turns out that they are rather lenient when it comes to the requirements of joining a pug raid. Just be attuned, know what you're doing, and be on TeamSpeak. That's it. It's a lot better than the outrageous amounts of requirements you need to have on Phoenix, where you had to have full pre-raid BIS gear, full consumables for 2 hours and a ton of gold. For a Zul'Gurub run. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked here. I just felt like pointing out that getting into raids here is in fact not that hard, and all it requires is a good attitude. So the raid itself went alright. No huge bugs, and from what I could see, it looked like all the bosses were scripted fairly well. Even the ads seemed to work fine, which also reminded me how much I hated the guardians that you had to kill before doing Assyrian. After numerous wipes, we finally got him down and we managed to do Assyrian. We did skip a few bosses like Iamis and Buru, but again, from what I could tell, this raid wasn't too bad. Moving on to Zul'Gurub, one of my favorite raids in vanilla, so this should be interesting. During this raid I noticed the occasional visual bug that I encountered during leveling as well, and some mechanics were not working correctly. For instance, High Priestess Yeklik did not have the firebombs during phase 2, which meant I was just constantly looking around at the ground, waiting for those firebombs to appear, but nothing happened. Also, Hakar did not use Blood Siphon at any moment while we were fighting him, and instead of mind controlling a player, he actually mind controlled a totem. And the same happened with Mandakir. Instead of having his eyes on a player, he had his eyes on a totem. So again, I discovered mechanics that just seemed to be flat out missing or working incorrectly. To be fair though, there were some fights that worked alright, including Venoxus with that phase 2 transition, Arlok with the Panther spawning correctly, and so on. Looking back at this raid, it was again a bit of a hit and miss situation. The fact that some mechanics of bosses were flat out missing or not working correctly means it really takes away from the actual challenge, so I say Zul'Gurub was average at best. Definitely not broken to the point where I had no fun at all in the raid, cause I actually did enjoy my time there with the people I was raiding with, but it's by far not the quality I'm used to compared to servers like Primal WoW. How even Phoenix had Zul'Gurub working better than this. Now that we talked about the content here on Vanillagaming, it's time to talk about how many people are actually playing here. And if you were paying attention during the footage of me leveling, you probably saw barely anyone else walking around. This is cause there's only a couple of hundred people playing at best, so zones feel barren and empty, and even capital cities like Orgrimmar only have a handful of people in them at any given time. It's a shame really. Most of the time you feel like you're leveling and playing alone, and that's especially bad in a massive multiplayer online RPG. Also, the few people that are playing here regularly are already decked out in tier 3 gear, so most of the time you gearing up just feels like one giant catch up to the rest of the people playing here. It's not all the time though. During my ZG and AQ20 runs there were a few new people and some alts that had some entry level gear, but that feeling of being really far behind in terms of gear compared to the rest of the server is still there. So, is that small population all bad? Well, not really, and allow me to play devil's advocate here, because I do generally like big populated servers. The perks of having a small community is that it's very tight-knit, and it's easier to get to know people within that community and remember them, which often means there's a lot less room to be an anonymous asshole, especially considering how there's only a few raiding guilds on each faction, and this is the point I'm trying to get at. In a hugely populated server, there's way more room for people to be assholes, because they get lost in a giant sea of people. It makes it way harder for people to spot and remember unfriendly players and weed them out. I experienced this firsthand on Warmane's Outland realm, where people could get away with way more stuff because of its huge population. So yeah, it's still not a great thing, and I wish there were more people playing here, as the zones still felt empty and barren as I progressed through them.
This is a homage beat.
And now we finally arrive at probably the most controversial topic of them all, the cash shop. And I don't just mean the shop they have for donating points, but also for vote points. Let's start with the vote points first. Like many other servers out there, you can vote once every 12 hours. It gives you a few points for doing so. Once you have enough vote points, you can use those points for some cool little vanity items, but more importantly raid mats and, wait for it, in-game gold. That's right, you can vote on the website to get in-game currency. I mean, what the actual fuck. If you thought Warmane's cash shop was bad, get a load of Vanillagaming, where you don't even have to donate to get free gold. So because of that, Vanillagaming has a hyper-inflated economy, with some items costing well over 1000 gold, let alone spellbooks that drop in AQ, which go for over 3000 gold. That's 4 epic mounts. Even the more regular items like mats for professions and basic greens are way more expensive than on any vanilla server I've been on. Not even Warsong can touch the prices of items here on Vanillagaming. And because all of this, most people don't even bother to farm anymore and are okay with just voting for gold, which means the whole grinding aspect, which was a big part of Vanilla WoW, is now gone to some extent. Moving on to the donation shop, where you can donate to get coins. 1 coin equals 1 euro, and the epic two-handed weapons, like the staff from Assyrian, is 10 bucks. 10 bucks for one of the best caster weapons pre-nax. That's way too cheap if you ask me, and judging by the popularity of certain items, there's a lot of people buying these items. Imagine this server being launched today with this business model. People on Reddit would lose their shit. So last but not least, let's talk about PvP. Now with that low population, you'd imagine that there's barely any BGs going on. And you'd be right. There's only 1 or 2 Warsong Gulch matches at best, and battlegrounds like Arathi Basin and Alterac Valley barely ever get played, so it's basically very occasional world PvP battles and Warsong Gulch. That's it for PvP. During some battlegrounds, I was again plagued with pathfinding issues, and it got so bad that I ended up being feared through the wall and ended outside of the enemy tunnel. There was also no rest timer on these spirit reserves for some reason, and when I kill people it says educated honor. I'm pretty sure that's supposed to be estimated honor, but I don't know. Now a few minutes ago I also talked about the fact that there's a huge difference in gear, and because of that you'll be horribly undergeared if you decide to do battlegrounds once you hit level 60. With tier 3 geared people basically being able to kill you in a few seconds, so it's just best to either roll a supportive class like a druid, or be at the front line and get your ass whooped over and over again. Alright, so what do I think of the server? Well, I wish I could be a bit more forgiving to the server, cause I would be lying if I said I didn't have my fair share of fun here with the random pug raids I joined. But the problems this server has are just too big to ignore. The thing that put me off was the bosses either completely missing their mechanics or using abilities correctly, the horrible pathfinding issues during battlegrounds, and the hyper-inflated economy, which discourages almost any player to just go out there and farm, like you're supposed to do on a vanilla server. What also baffles me is that after being open for years, there's still an abundance of bugs, and maybe Vanillagaming used to be quite decent back in 2009, But I think it is fair to say that the standard in terms of quality has risen over the last couple of years, and like Phoenix, Vanillagaming just falls short compared to other, newer servers like Elysium or Kronos. That being said though, Vanillagaming does deserve credit for still having their server up and running after 8 years, and I think it is due to the small amount of people that stay loyal to the server and have created a tight-knit community here. It does raise the question though, why stay loyal to a server that is nowhere near the quality of more modern vanilla servers? And the truth is, I'm not sure. I guess it's one of those stories where you keep going to that crappy mall in your town and someone asks you, why do you keep going there? And the only thing you can say back is, well, because my friends are there, and I care more about the people I hang out with than where we actually hang out. So, in short, Vanillagaming is a painfully average server, but has the bragging rights of being open for such a long time, so in terms of longevity they take the cake. I guess if you're someone who is looking for a vanilla server with a very high leveling rate, you're very forgiving in terms of bugs, and you're someone who actually likes the idea of cheap to buy items and being able to vote for gold, then why not? Give it a go. For all the other people, there's just better alternatives out there. And there you have it folks, my review of the private server Vanillagaming. I hope you enjoyed this review and I'll be back very soon with a new video. Until then, I'm Hamsterwheel and have a good one.